Welcome back to Unlimited Reads. You're with Chris, and thanks for joining me today as I bring to you my spoiler-free review of The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. Now, I picked up his previous novel last year called The Midnight Library, and I loved it. So I knew going into this one that I would enjoy it, and I did to an extent. However, it has had a lukewarm reception on Goodreads for one reason or another, and I can understand why. Was the book brilliant? No, but I did like it, and I did give it a generous 4-star rating. Okay, so let's start how I always like to with what the book is about, taken from the cover. When retired math teacher Grace Winters is left a rundown house on a Mediterranean island by a long-lost friend, curiosity gets the better of her. She arrives in Ibiza with a one-way ticket, no guidebook, and no plan. Among the rugged hills and golden beaches of the island, Grace searches for answers about her friend's life and how it ended. What she uncovers is stranger than she could have dreamed. But to dive into the impossible truth, Grace must first come to terms with her past. Okay, so Grace is in her 70s. She's retirement age. She has dealt with terrible loss in her past, so she feels she has nothing to lose. So she decides to go to Ibiza and check out this house that has been bequeathed to her. And it's not long before she starts to feel a little bit different and may have been singled out for a higher purpose by esoteric or magical means. And it's not long before she receives certain gifts that manifest in very interesting ways. Now, the parallels I'll draw here with these gifts or powers, if you think back, if you've seen the film, the original Highlander film starring Christopher Lambert, at the end Connor McLeod receives his quickening, which is an ultimate power, if you will. Also, you might draw some parallels with the 1996 movie starring John Travolta called Phenomenon, with certain powers there. So that's all I'll say without spoiling things, and you kind of get an idea of what I'm getting at in terms of what these gifts are and how they manifest and the ramifications and effects they would have on people. So these gifts become pivotal in a battle of sorts between good and evil, and the special nature of the island and the surrounding sea is very, very special and becomes threatened. So Grace must overcome her personal obstacles in order to prevail. Now, the novel is narrated from two different viewpoints, okay? The main point of view is from Grace herself narrating the events, but there's also the second person point of view where she's referring to all these events written in a letter to a former student that reached out to her. So she occasionally refers to the recipient of the letter, the student in this case. So it's a very clever way of telling the story, and it's not very common, so it was quite refreshing and unique. There are parts of the novel that are very, very deep and rich in detail in relation to the esoteric components of what's been going on. There's real meaning of life stuff. I mean, there is a whole chapter, it's a small chapter, but a whole chapter nonetheless about orange juice and the description on how it tastes. You may think it's a little bit weird, but it is kind of appropriate to what's going on with Grace. It's very, very interesting. Now, on the surface, this appears like a very mundane thing, a glass of orange juice, but how Haig goes into the description involving this chapter is very next level and really makes you think. So there's a fair bit of magic realism in this novel, which is really interesting and thought-provoking, and the characters are very multi-dimensional, which are great to read about. There are also high stakes with what's going on with the island and how it is being threatened, which provides really good tension throughout the book. Now, I did have an issue with the ending itself. I felt it was a little bit drawn out for my tastes. I felt that I was ready to finish the book at a certain point because I felt that everything that needed to be done was done, and it just continued to go on a little bit when I had actually had enough. And when I got to the end, I was slightly glad to close the book. So it could have been trimmed back a little bit, but it's only a small gripe. Now, I do have a trigger warning here. In the book, there is some elements of cruelty to animals. It's only a very, very small part of the book, but I wanted to give you a heads up on that so you can be prepared for that, because the what happens in this particular chapter was a little bit difficult for me to read about, so just be wary of that. Now, the thing I enjoyed most about the story is how Grace's powers were used and how they manifested and how those powers affected people. I thought it was very, very inventive with what she did, and I think if anyone has read The Midnight Library before, I think you will enjoy this book, and I certainly did. Despite what a lot of people think on Goodreads, it did get some lukewarm reviews. Some people actually disliked it a lot. And now, I actually enjoyed it overall. It's just the ending that let it down a little bit, but it was only a minor thing. Overall, I found it a very good, solid, fairly quick read, which I would still recommend, and it would also appeal to a bit of an older demographic as well. So there you go, guys. That is it for my spoiler-free review of The Life Impossible. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing. It all helps towards my ultimate goal of 1,000 subscribers. But until the next video, guys, happy reading.